Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's Peg.
Hi, Peg. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. It's really great to see you. Yes, this is also being recorded on video as well as podcast. So thank you so much for jumping in and joining us today. It's been a while since we've spoken. It's been a while since I've seen you because, you know, that little thing called COVID kind of got in the way of life.
Yeah, didn't it just?
But yeah, typically I would, see you, interact with you in the fitness community, being part of Good Life, being part of Les Mills, teaching group fitness. That's how I know you and those interactions that I've had with you. So yeah, so it feels like a long time since we've had an opportunity to kind of connect.
Yeah.
And obviously, you don't live in Ontario, so it's not like I can see you down the street. You are in another province. So it's really good to see your face. It's really good to connect and chat. So thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for letting me in when I knocked.
You're welcome.
It's great to be here. And it is so true that thank goodness for social media and YouTube and all the things that can keep us kind of in touch these days, because we haven't had the real thing. And I think some of that's coming back, which is nice. I won't be at the big conference this summer, which sometimes we would have seen each other there, but maybe next summer, you never know. But yeah, so I'm still involved in fitness, but not in the gym. And that kind of did shut down a little bit for me during the COVID thing. So just the basement became my place for fitness, which is something that I'm sure that some of your listeners can relate to. They don't have a gym membership, or they don't have money or time for a gym membership. So the basement became what it was, but there are ways that you can figure that out. So that's what it was. But also I've always been in education. I did teach school for a number of years back in the late 80s and into the 90s, but the teaching of fitness sort of took over my educational pursuits. And I got to teach adults and teach fitness and teach instructors. And I love educating people. And so I've just kind of veered off into online coaching. And now I can continue to be an educator and a speaker and a teacher, but, like this, through the screen. And some of the things I really focus on now is mindset, because I think that has so much to do with fitness too. Like, it's all wrapped up. And I've gotten into human design, which is a focus of study that I use to sort of base a lot of my educational classes on now, is the study of human design, and some of my one-on-one coaching too. So yeah, I still get to teach. It's just in a very different way. For me, the online teaching of fitness never resonated. I didn't want to be on a Zoom thing teaching Zoom classes to people. It just didn't feel right. But I feel like I can still talk some wisdom into people through my podcast and through, just social media stuff. So yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Yeah. No worries. We got you covered on the fitness via Zoom. Just going to put a shameless plug out there for the Nock Academy.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I think that is you make such an important point, and I'm sure we can dive off in a million directions from this point, but it didn't fit for you. And I think a lot of fitness professionals maybe leaned into it, even though it didn't feel right for them. And, maybe they did it, maybe they didn't, maybe they carried on. And, if you weren't able to find that, it wasn't a necessity. It was a necessity for some people to receive that, but not a necessity for everyone to teach it. And I think that shows a really good awareness on your part that you didn't take on something that didn't feel right for you, even because everyone else was doing it. And I feel like that,
or because people were asking me to do it.
Yeah.
Pressure. Yes.
Right. And I feel like that crosses over to a lot of people's mindsets with everything: health, fitness, nutrition, lifestyle. Is that something that you're navigating a lot with your clients now when you talk about mindset?
Yes. And one thing that popped up into my head as soon as you were saying how it didn't fit, and I said no to doing it that way, it wasn't my way. Like, that so resonates with human design. And some of the things that I help my clients with now is decision making from your body, not from what you think you should do or what people tell you they should do, what their opinion is, but really learning how to say no to things. And I'm a generator. If anybody, your listeners are human design curiosity people, and generators often say yes to things that we should say no to. I think it's a common human tendency, though, is to, we just say yes. And because you're a generator, I can do all the things. I've got lots of energy, and people think you should do everything then. And so just getting used to the, saying yes and no to things that don't fit with us. So that's one thing. But the whole mindset issue, yeah, what you were saying around just people's choices, I guess, and what they choose to do for fitness too. Just because everybody else says, oh, you should go to the gym, that's the only way you can get fit. Yeah, no. Some people much prefer in their basement watching Zoom classes, participating that way. There's so many different aspects of humanity. We all have to choose what works for us, because that's the thing. Fitness is not easy. Getting fit is not easy. It's a choice. It's a good choice. It's a healthy choice, but it's not easy to make the time, get to the gym and all those things. So it better be something that you want to do, something that really resonates with you and sits well between your ears. Like it's a mindset thing that works for you and your body and your lifestyle. So there's lots of variety in there, but people can't just follow along what everybody else says they should do. I don't know if that answered the question, kind of, but
no, it did.
No, it was great.
Yeah, and it was really powerful, because I actually made a post about this today, and it was a conversation I had with somebody, and it was talking about how they were so confused and overwhelmed with all the information. And my kind of comment back to that, and what I made a post about, was how a lot of this stuff is very anecdotal. Like it worked for somebody, and somebody really enjoyed this class and they did it and it got them in the best shape of their life. That's awesome, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So
right.
What I was part of you saying was kind of reduce down the amount of content you're consuming, or the information you're consuming, because sometimes it does get overwhelming. And sometimes, again, we need to say no to some of those things that are confusing us and overwhelming us. And I'll share something I shared yesterday on it when I was recording a show, which is, and I stole this from someone else, but no is a full sentence. Just no. And if it doesn't feel right, no one else deserves an explanation of that. And you can just say no.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
You were going to jump in and say something. I got there first.
I was going to jump in and say something, because, I think, I kind of joked about the pandemic at the beginning, but it did cause a lot of people to rethink, what's important to them, whether it's relationships, wellness, nutrition, job, etc., etc. So I feel like the majority of the world is going through a bit of a reboot, and trying to work out what's important to them, as well as now, as the world begins to open up, navigate getting back into day-to-day life. So I feel like everything right now is somewhat overwhelming. And then throw in, other stuff like, I don't know, children and and jobs, etc. So it does become a challenge to know where to start first. And this is where, I really want to get into the detail with you, whether it's human design, whether it's, through life coaching, prioritizing, on how you can truly help somebody find that clarity.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first thing, is for people to actually listen to themselves to see what they want, because it is overwhelming, and the choices and the options and this and that, just to give them the permission slip. And we always say with human design, it's a bit of a permission slip to be who you are. So I guess that kind of relates here, just to choose what works for you. But then just really listen and talking to people. Like if I was coaching somebody, I would certainly be asking them, what feels good? What makes you smile? What gives you joy? Is it lifting weights? And if it's not, then that's not where we're going to start. Because if that's torture, let's start somewhere else. And I love books. And there's one book I read years ago, and it's more of a business book, but it's called The One Thing. And I think that relates too. Pick the one thing and start with just the one thing. We don't need to overwhelm ourselves. Take one step. Just get started. And I think another book that I mentioned to you before that I love, and you guys probably have read it, is Atomic Habits by James Clear, because it's so simple. And that's what he says, is start simple. He even says to people, if you want to go to the gym, only let yourself go for 2 minutes. Only tell yourself, so you're not burdened by it. Oh, I got to go to the gym. I got to start going to the gym. Drive to the gym, go in the gym. Literally, you can only stay for 5 minutes. Get on the treadmill, figure out how it works, then go home. And if you do that enough days in a row or 3 times a week, it's not that hard. And you don't have to convince yourself, because it's just, I'm going to stop at the gym for 5 minutes. You become the type of person, you develop an identity of the type of person who goes to the gym. And then it's the mindset. Once you start thinking of yourself as, I'm the type of person that goes to the gym, and you start to talk to people. Yeah, I go to the gym. They don't need to know all the details of your first little step of taking 5 minutes, but you're the type of person that goes to the gym. Once you start to solidify that identity of that's me, then you'll start going to the gym because you actually want to, and you'll want to stay longer. Well, now that I'm here, I kind of want to put in 30 minutes. So it's, yes, just starting simple, keeping things simple. Life is so complex and confusing and overwhelming, and just to really zone in on what brings you joy, what would you like to try, how can we start, what's the first step? And I know James Clear also talks about habit stacking, which I think is a great one too for people to keep it simple. Is if you want to be more fit, or if you want to run a marathon, don't think about the marathon. Put your running shoes beside your bed, and when you wake up in the morning, put your running shoes on. And maybe that's as far as you get for the first week or two. You wear your running shoes around in the morning while you're having coffee. But then it's like, well, I'm just going to get out the door and maybe walk around the block. And then I'm going to get out the door and I'm going to jog around the block. And then it's 2 blocks. And then suddenly you become the type of person who is a runner. And next thing you know, you're at your marathon. But I think it's that idea people want the stuff that's way out there. And just knowing that you can start here. Start with the first step.
I like that. Choose one thing and then just little bite-sized achievable pieces.
Yeah. I think James Clear says something about like 2-minute wins, or like just getting a small win. And a small win is that you put your running shoes on, or a small win is that you stopped at the gym to figure out the treadmill. Like that's it. That's a small win. And you celebrate those things, and then you just keep stacking them up. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and one of my favorite books of all time. And funny enough, that I shared the story. So the kind of piece of advice that you gave there with the 2 minutes at the gym, he shares a great story in the book. I don't know if you remember this, about a guy that actually did exactly that, and all he did was drive to the gym, park in the parking lot, go home for a week, and then just built from there, right? And I love that. I share that story all the time, and it's really powerful. And here's where, if anyone listening is thinking about where to get started and how this relates to motivation, where I find a lot of people I've worked with in the past get stuck is that they're looking for motivation to take action. And here's the reality check. Anyone tuning in that thinks that is, action creates the motivation, not the other way around. So, but you need something manageable, right? So a 2-minute win, you do that repetitively, that builds one habit, that's going to create motivation. And as you already said, Peg, your 5 minutes becomes 10, becomes 15, and then you just continue on that journey.
Yeah. And I think so many people I always found it funny and sad with the gym idea is that people, they want to get in shape before they get in the classes. You know, like they don't want to be in a class with other people until they're in shape, or until they know a bit more about the weight training stuff. So they don't look silly, foolish, out of place. And it's such a sad thing because the group fitness room is a place we welcome them, and we help them with those things. So it's just kind of interesting. But I think the home fitness idea is such a great thing for people who maybe that is their mindset about going to the gym. They're afraid to be, but that's where, you know, home stuff on Zoom, the video on demand type of things that we have nowadays is so good for people. The only thing is, like, are they sitting on the couch doing it, like watching it? Oh, this is really great. Or are they doing it? So there has to be a level of commitment, willpower still with the home stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. The accountability. We share this a lot through kind of our social channels and stuff where, you know, anybody go right now and Google online workout and you'll get a million YouTube videos. But the problem is the vast majority of the population still aren't getting recommended amounts of activity. And I'm going to do another shameless plug because this is our show and we do what we want. That's why we have our program set up so we see everybody and everybody sees us. So we know who's there. Everyone has got a camera on in their little square. We're coaching them. We see that no one's sitting on the couch. Not yet in a year has anyone been sitting on the couch watching.
Just the pets, just the dogs.
Just the dogs and the kids in the background. But it's so important. And there are lots of options. And although we have on-demand options, they're weaved in as a support structure for the live things. So our people do them. And I know they're logging on and doing them, or else why would they bother? Because they're already getting those live experiences. So sometimes we need that accountability and that community aspect, which is what we lean heavily on, and what obviously in-person fitness does in a group fitness studio, as you mentioned, does exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah. And I think just when you said the word community, like for anything nowadays, and especially during those years where we couldn't actually see each other, but building a sense of community through the screen is so important. But even now that we can get out and about, creating community in real life, but also it's that sense of creating the belonging, even if it is through a computer screen, you can do that. And it sounds like that's what you guys are doing. But people need that. Otherwise, and we used to joke, I don't know if you guys remember, like in the beginning of Les Mills, when we would do trainings, like people don't join the gym, they don't stay at the gym to talk to the treadmill. The treadmill doesn't know them, see them, love them. Whereas in group fitness, if people came to group fitness, they had more staying power because they felt like they belonged and somebody actually cared if they were there, if they weren't there, where the treadmill doesn't care if you show up or not. So yeah, accountability is definitely huge.
It hooks you in. It hooks you in,
Yeah.
right? And that's why people laugh and they always joke that the work, they're like, these people just turn up. It's like the robots. Like they're in the room, they do their thing. They're like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, that's why people joke that it's a cult. I'm like, we're not purposely doing that. But when people get that sense of belonging and they're in that space with other people, they don't want to leave. And we've kind of inadvertently created that in those worlds.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was just thinking about the human design aspect, because there's a lot of things in human design that talk about energy, like what your energy type is, and sometimes the level of energy. But there's also, people that have more of a flow of energy, that they're more independent, or they can be, and others who rely more on being around the energy of others. So it's interesting in that aspect too, like probably people who have what we call single definition, they're defined in their centers by themselves. They don't need other connections. They might be more apt to stick to something that's at home by themselves in the basement and okay with that. But there are other people, and also I get into the profile lines where my daughter is considered a networker. She's line 4 for all the human design experts out there, but she likes to be around people, and that makes her shine. So other people, it's really interesting how we are all so different. But I think what we said at the beginning is you got to find what works for you and not necessarily listen. Because for some people, running on the treadmill does work for them. But if you're not sticking with it, then maybe you do need to try the group thing. Or if you don't figure, if the gym, another one of the energy types in human design is a reflector. And I'm just going to show you guys a chart. I mean, maybe you're into human design, I don't know, but this is my daughter's chart. So it's a little bit like the chakra system. So there's energy centers. But a reflector is somebody who doesn't have any, they're all white centers. And that's a little bit more like absorbing energy. So for reflectors, environment is huge for them because they absorb so much energy from other people and even just the atmosphere. So if gym on this corner doesn't feel good for them, doesn't mean that gyms don't work for them ever. It's just not the right gym. It's not the right atmosphere. It's not the right people or energy. So that's another thing too, that people can't go to one gym and say, like, regardless of human design, they can't go to one gym and say, oh, gyms just aren't for me. I don't fit in. It's maybe not, but maybe you need to go to a smaller studio, or, there's just so many different things that come into play. But that sense of community for a lot of people, I think, is definitely what locks it down. Yeah.
I'll share a funny story. It's completely unrelated, but it made me literally was like howling out loud. Nikki sent me an Instagram reel. This is what we do. Nikki sits in our office upstairs for everyone listening, and I sit downstairs and she sends me stuff on Instagram.
Whoa. Back it up. I do work.
Well, what?
I sit upstairs working.
Oh, sorry.
And then periodically. Thank you.
To be clear, yes. While I'm also working on receiving these. And she sent me one of this guy making a reel, and he says, I'm looking for an emotional support person that will take me to social events that they want to go to, talk to all the people while I eat all the food and pet the dogs, and then we'll both go home happy. And Nikki sent me it and put on there, is this our relationship ? And it's so true. And it's when you talk about energies, some people need that. I want to be around people, but I don't want to go. If that makes any sense. I don't want to find things to go to. But if someone says, come on, I'll go. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to absorb a bit of this energy. I'm going to feed off other people. I'm going to enjoy being there, but leave me alone.
Yeah. It's, I should do a reading for you guys. We should do a human design reading. I could figure out what you are. Have you ever done that?
We've had bits and pieces done. Yes, we had a business coach, and this was part of, our self-discovery and brand identity and helping us make great business. So what are you? I'm curious now. What are your energy types? Do you remember?
Both generators.
We're both generators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we were nodding earlier when you're like, you can't say no to things. You can say, yes, I'm going to do all the things all the time. And I think it's so hard as well. And it just made me think of something else, that when we are in that place, and I think a lot of people are, my understanding that's the high amount of the population are generators, is I think if we tie that into something else I see a lot with people in fitness and just in life, is the all or nothing mentality.
Yeah.
And then what happens is when we can't say no to things and we have an all or nothing mentality, is we just get burnt out, because you can't possibly have that approach if you're going to take on all these things. And the all or nothing is what, in my opinion, just holds so many people back from continued success. So.
Yeah, I agree. And if, you know, like you said, there is 70% of the population are generators. So there is a lot, but I always tell people that it's sort of our responsibility to the planet, to humanity, to be lit up by what we're doing, because that our light, our energy is what radiates out, and really it gives energy to, like, both my kids are projectors, so they don't have the sacral energy. But if I'm lit up by things, they can absorb some of my positive energy. But if I'm not lit up, if I'm saying yes to things that just are sucking the life and the light out of me, we're really kind of dimming the whole light of the planet. So yeah, it's so important for people to figure out what works for them and only say yes to the yes things. Don't be a yes
to the yes things. I like that.
Yeah, the hell yes.
I agree. So I just want to maybe back it up about a million steps for human design, because I know there are going to be some people listening that are like, what is this thing? Okay. Like, we've only had a little bit, like I said, a little bit of exposure, but ever so curious. And I'm sure whoever's listening, if you don't know what it is like even more curious now. So can you kind of give us just a bit of info, Peg, like what it is, where it came from, just so everyone listening can kind of understand its purpose?
Yeah, you bet.
That'd be sweet.
I often start by saying it's a little bit like astrology on crack.
Cool. I love it. Now everyone's listening.
Yeah. It does come from, you know, planetary alignments. There's some astrology in it, but it also includes, so it's a bit of a mixture of Eastern and Western philosophies, a little bit of spirituality, which some people are not into the woo-woo, but I don't like to call it woo-woo. It's spirituality, but it's universal energy, and a little bit of scientific, like genetic code stuff comes into it as well. So the scientist part is neutrinos. Like, there are neutrinos in the atmosphere around us, and it's the smallest particle ever. But it was proven that they have a mass, and so they carry information. So at the time of your birth, like, human design is really determined by your birth date, time, like, was it 9 a.m., was it 4 p.m.? That affects the difference, because that affects where the planets are that day when you were born, and the place, so on the earth where you were born. Because at that moment of your birth is when you were sort of imprinted with universal energy. That's when the neutrinos pass through your newborn skin. And so in human design, it just tells you a lot about, again, I could go on and on and on about stuff. People could, you know, come to find me and ask me some questions on Instagram, or I have a group, it's called the Growth Zone, and it's just a Facebook group, but I have a lot of videos in there about human design. But it tells you about your energy type, and as I showed you on this picture, you know, it's like the chakra system. So that's some of the Eastern philosophy, the chakra system, the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, the I Ching comes into it with the profile lines. So there are many layers. And I guess the thing about human design, there's no bad chart. Like, that's my chart, 2 centers. This is my daughter's chart. And this is human nature. When I saw mine, I thought, oh, is that all I got? And I saw hers, I thought, look at all the bright colors, she's better. But your chart is perfect for who you are. And even those white centers, that's how you absorb energy from other people. So there's ways that you can be more flexible in life, how you can use that open center. But yeah, it tells you a lot about your energy type, how you make decisions from what part of your body. And yeah, I just love the fact that it is the science of the genetic code is in there. Gene Keys is also kind of a sister system. I have a book sitting right here I could show you. If anyone's read The Gene Keys by Richard Rudd, it is about a little bit more about the genetic code aspect of it. But yeah, it's been bang on for me and my kids. So I now base this, you know, human design is how I help to coach people, because, you know, even if it is to go to the gym, if I had a reflector client, I might say, like, let's just make sure it's a good environment for you, because you're absorbing lots of energy. How do the people feel? How does the gym feel? How does the location feel? Do you feel better in your house? And even in their own house, do you feel better working out in the basement, or does the basement feel like you don't ever want to go down there? So why would I start a workout program there? I'm just going to stop. And I might stop because I think it's the workout, but it's really just the basement atmosphere. So there's so many things. I was also thinking about how it affects fitness. A defined heart. My daughter has a defined heart. And when we say defined, just means it's colored in. defined hearts have more willpower. They're driven and committed to things. My heart is open. So I have less long-term willpower commitment. In other words, I better find ways to commit to something. A 30-day challenge, maybe not the best for someone with an open heart. But if I say, yeah, take it 1 week at a time, or I set certain little steps, it's very interesting, the things that come through the chart, the messages that it shows me about people. So yeah, I don't know if that's a Coles Note version or if that just gets everybody all confused, but there's a lot of stuff that you really resonate with. My son is another part of the chart is your profile lines. He's a 1-3, and a 1 stands for an investigator researcher. Absolutely him. Google search anything immediately. If he has a pain in his side, what does it mean to have a pain in your side? If he wants to buy a new snowboard, looks them all up. Just research. And he's also a line 3, which is an experimenter. He loves to try things, and that he's going to school in Banff and doing all kinds of outdoor stuff. And that's so him. You know, he experiments. He has no fear. That's also part of his chart. So anyway, there's lots going on. It's the science of differentiation. We say it's a little bit like a fingerprint or a snowflake. No 2 charts are the same. There are so many layers in there that just make us all different and unique. I think, you know, that relates to fitness too. We all need to find our unique path.
Yeah.
No, I love this.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Yes, I feel like we need to talk for about 7 hours away from this podcast, because there's so much into it. I'm like, I need to know this, I need to know that. This, it just kind of aligns with just me as a person, and just what I'm interested in. But what I'm curious about is having all of this information, Peg. For you and your family, has it helped you make choices in your life? Has it helped you be more confident in yourself, maybe more confident in decision making, or just day-to-day activities? Like what benefits, I guess is what I'm saying, have you achieved because of your research, learning, and understanding of human design?
One thing I love about it, and I've done a lot of parenting courses, because even the man who he channeled this information, like it came to him and he wrote it all out, which that's the part that sounds a little woo-woo to people who aren't into spirituality, but he had this download of information, and it all fits together with some of those Eastern philosophies too. So it's believable for sure, especially when you get your chart done, you go, oh yeah. But I think this idea, he wrote it, or sorry, not he wrote it, but he emphasized the fact of how important it is for kids. Because if we could start to raise our kids according to who they are, not according to what society says, what parents say, what schools do, tradition, and the boy-girl thing, like all the stuff that we do, it's called conditioning. In human design, we call it conditioning. And so if we can understand how we are conditioned in our lives, it's really like peeling back the layers. When you get a human design reading, it's like taking off the layers of conditioning. It's like, well, that's who I really was. And it's a bit of a permission slip to kind of come home to who you were. So just getting parents to understand their kids, because some kids have a tendency to be like a manifestor child. They initiate things. They just start doing things. They just do things, and they can get into a lot of trouble, and they can be told no a lot of times. So then they stop acting like a manifestor, or they start lying about the things they're doing, because they get scolded for it. So that's what we call conditioning. So I guess just interrelationships, like with my kids, knowing that they're projectors, they don't have as much sustained energy as I do. So I can be mindful of that. Sometimes people might find out that like this is your emotional solar plexus, where your emotions reside. Luckily, all 3 of my kids and I all have defined. So we're not really affecting each other's emotions as much as if somebody had an open emotional center, let's say in my house, and I come home and I'm all angry, suddenly they're feeling and absorbing my anger emotion, and they can amplify it, even make it worse. And if they're not aware of their design and that's a thing for them. So I think it's this awareness of, who you are, who other people are. It's never a prescription. It's an experiment. So I always, if I do a human design reading for somebody, I say, this is what your chart says. If it doesn't resonate, maybe you've been a little bit conditioned with some things through life, or maybe it's just not something you want to look into right now, but it's a permission slip. Experiment with this, try this. And as far as decisions go, I think the natural tendency for all of us is to think about it. I think it through logically. We'd use this logical system. Whereas the people who have for years, regardless of human design, if they've always trusted their gut, I just trust my gut. I didn't feel good for my gut. Like, they're more on the right page than those of us who've been thinking it through for years, because it's truly, we have energy centers in our body where we're designed to make decisions. And for us generators, a lot of that comes from our sacral. Is it a or is it a ugh? Is it a yes? Is it a no? And we can feel it if we just trusted it. But so often, you'll get your paper out and you'll go, well, the pros on this decision and the cons on this decision. And then we'll ask other people, what do you think? That's even worse, because what they think is not important. Not as even what I think is not important. What do I feel? Does it feel right? And some people are a splenic decision maker, this splenic intuition. So they have this just a little intuitive, yeah, it doesn't feel right. Other people, their authority is, and when I say authority, that's how you make decisions in human design. So other people, their authority might be a heart, if their will center, their ego, and they make decisions just from that. It's my heart's desire. I want it, so I will have it. That's how they make decisions. But who in real life trusts that? If I just said, if that was my design, and I said, I want it, so I'm going to have it. It's my heart's desire. Somebody would say, well, you can't make that decision based on that, or you should really think that through. We just talk people out of it. So it's just very interesting. I think, kids are probably, if we let them live their design, they would make decisions right. But we teach them, think about it.
Yeah.
So I would say it affects relationships, and it affects so much, I think. And I'm, again, not to say it's the end all be all. A lot of people have lived a very aligned life without human design. I kind of feel that way about myself. I feel like I've always, been a good parent. You can be a good parent and still not have known your child's human design growing up. But if you have struggled in certain areas, especially, it's kind of like oh, well, that makes sense now. Now I understand why, my son and I butt heads. When I look at our charts, now I kind of get why he's so emotional. Now it starts to make sense. So it's not the end all be all, but it can certainly help some people who are looking for something to ground them in life, and whether that's in their fitness journey, in their parenting journey, relationship journey. So there's just a lot of value, I think, in knowing.
Yeah, I really like that, and I wonder, just another reference to a book. And I wonder if you've read this one, Blink by Malcolm Gladwell.
A long time ago, my dad actually gave it to me years ago. So I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he kind of dives into it's all about gut reactions, basically.
Okay.
In that split second, and he actually uncovers a huge amount of science around it. So you wouldn't think there was any scientific studies around split second decision making, but what he shows in a lot of the stories is that even when people have these split second decisions, he tells this great story at the beginning about basically a fake statue monument, and how we go through all this process of years worth of trying to figure out if this was really real or not. And initially, all the reactions from everybody that was involved was, no, it's fake, no, it's fake. And they didn't trust that. And it basically shows that time and time again that it is some solid science and research to show that it is a thing. And that really opened my eyes and made me really curious, because I am the kind of person that says, that's not logical. How can that be a thing? Where's the science, right? And I was the same with human design, exactly the same. I was like, it sounds a bit woo-woo. I'm like, I'll just stick to my spreadsheets and my logical processes.
Yeah.
And when I was curious, and I said, you know what, if I don't know what I don't know, so be curious. And if it isn't for me, that's okay. And it opened my eyes a lot. So, yeah.
It's interesting that you say that too. And it's not like we don't, like, my daughter does have a defined ajna. And so this is a processing center. So it's not that logic is not good. And some people are really good at processing. They like to be organized. There are those things in our charts too. But I think the idea of making decisions, that's a big one that most of us in life have always been taught. Pros and cons list, what's logical, what sounds reasonable, instead of, even buying a house. I use this example in some, maybe on my podcast once. You just know. You could walk into a house and go, this is the one. Before you know even the layout of the house exactly, or the, what the property tax is, or what the payments are going to be. It's like, this is it. I'm getting a vibe. This is it. And you could walk into other places, maybe, or even if we're not talking about houses, but a group, like I said, the gym, you could walk into a group exercise class, and the people, it's just the people that go at that time of day, the vibe isn't you. It's like, nope, this is not for me. So we do have these instincts as humans that we treat ourselves like processing centers and we go logic all the time. There's a time and place for logic, but not making decisions. It's funny. Yeah.
That's what Nicky shared about us going through this with our business coach, and that's what I keep getting told off for. Exactly that. Just make the decision and just go with it. Whatever you decide straight away. I'm like, all right, fine. So I've been trying my best to do that. But it is so, and it goes back to kind of what we were saying about, I shared about content and, you know, what you're consuming. And some of the feedback on, you know, posting things like that and getting, you know, people's comments and stuff is, well, yeah, but you might be missing out that way on something that's really useful because you're trying to get rid of information. But what I said was, look, there's very minimal fact when it comes to the world of health and fitness, probably about 10% of it's fact. The rest of it's just people's opinion and ways of doing things. So when you're removing those things that don't feel right or they're confusing and overwhelming you, all you're simply doing is consuming more stuff that aligns with you. And really, as long as there's some, you know, we're sticking to the 10% of facts, right? You know, the fitness and nutrition's not really changed a lot in the last, you know, 20 odd years I've been in it and longer. It's just different ways of doing it. And what you're doing is opening up your eyes to things that align best with you and brings everything together on what you said.
Yeah, for sure. It is interesting. I often think like there's no new ideas in the world in any area, like, but you know, in fitness. And the thing I find hilarious is when like stuff that we did in the late 80s that was, you know, I don't know, calisthenic type stuff, like just, oh, that's so out in the 90s and y'all did this like total body conditioning, and then it was all, I don't know, weight strength training, and then it was into this, and now you see some of this high low impact aerobics calisthenics coming back. I'm like, just like clothing, everything comes back. We just recycle ideas. There's really nothing new. And so I like kind of what you said is you don't have to have it all, just whatever feels good to absorb and hold and let the rest go. And that's something we actually talk about with the open centers, because like these are mine. I could bring in my open head there ideas to the point of being overwhelmed, like your ideas and his ideas and all these ideas, but I need to learn to let some of them go. So it's being a sieve, not always a sponge. Or if you are a sponge, like get rid of some that you've absorbed. So I think that's the same thing in fitness. Yeah, you could just keep, and when I was talking about moving or downsizing, it's something that I realized too. You look at books that you have that don't resonate anymore, but you kept the book, or, you know, your philosophies have changed. And so we just hold on to all this information when sometimes you could look at it and go, no. Yeah, it's kind of like decluttering, decluttering your head of all the things you don't need. Yeah.
It's true. What was that show? There was a show, wasn't there, on Netflix? It was like, you look at an item, you're like, does this bring me joy? Does it, you know, whatever, and then say goodbye or whatever.
That Marie Kondo thing. And it's funny, I talked about that on my podcast, kind of about mindset. I said, if it doesn't spark joy between your ears, you know, let's get that shit out, is kind of what I said. But with Haley and I packing, there's still things that bring me joy. But my new question is, will somebody else get more joy from it? Because then I can give it away. Then it's like, oh, okay, they would like that, you know, picture frame or that mirror, or this piece of artwork. Would somebody else enjoy it more? I have stuffed animals. So I have to ask myself, would a child, somebody else who really needs it, enjoy it more, give it a better home? So it's funny.
I'm going to write that on a whiteboard. Will someone get more joy from this? And I'm going to bring it down to the basement. I'm going to make Nicky go through all of our stuff and throw loads of stuff out.
Oh, good. pretend that you're moving. Just pretend you're moving. You got to downsize. Will it bring somebody else more joy? Yeah, man. Such a good question.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks.
Let me know how that goes.
Yeah, for sure.
What's behind the screen?
Yeah, everything's behind the screen. I know I don't have a lot. We've moved a fair few times.
It's true.
But yes, I'm a little bit more emotional. Let's just put that on decision making. Yeah. So I want to kind of put all of this information into somewhat of an action plan for someone, because, you know, if there is a busy parent listening, a busy professional, you know, at a Fit Pro, I don't know, just anybody who is thinking, I'm really curious about this and I know something needs to change. As we mentioned at the beginning, I'm overstimulated by all my options in just everything, you know, but something needs to change and I need to take action. You know, what would be step one in that process? in getting either a human design reading done or, you know, just having a great conversation? Like, what would your advice be to that person listening right now?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes getting a human design reading done, but I don't mean that that's a prescription everybody has to do. But usually when I do a one-on-one coaching with somebody, I will include that in the price of coaching because I want to see them, for me partly, but also sometimes it might affect some of their choices.
Mhm.
But I think it's having that conversation, like what do you want? Like, and I know it's goal setting and stuff, but maybe not even calling it goal setting. Like, what do you want? And also then what brings you joy? So if they say I want to lose weight, okay, now we kind of know this is the fact. And but even the whole idea of, and again, good books, Simon Sinek, you know, start with why. Like, why do you want to lose weight? And if it's, you know, sometimes I can talk them out of reasons, like because I want to buy new clothes. I did a post about this the other day. I would say buy the new clothes if it makes you feel better about you, because then you might just want to work out because you feel good about you, instead of punishing yourself by saying I'm only going to get new clothes when I lose 10 pounds. So I think we'd really get clear on like why, and is it a reasonable why, or is it, yeah, like almost, is it your decision or is it society telling you something for what you need to do? Because for some people, if you get down to it, maybe it is, you know, I really can't get up and down the stairs as well as I used to be to, you know, help my kids with stuff. Like that's a legitimate why you want to get in shape. And then maybe you go to the next thing, like, do we need to go to a gym for that? How do you feel about a gym? Do you think you'd be more accountable? Just asking lots of questions, I think, instead of being the prescriber, especially in the beginning, find out from them, like what brings you joy. And also, you know, what time can you commit, with the little caveat that, you know, time is what you will prioritize, what you want to. If you tell me you don't have time for this, you know, do you have time for Netflix? Do you have time for, if you're not, if you say you have no time, is it that, or is it just that you don't want to do it? And then let's find out what you do want. Like, is it outdoors? Do you just need outdoor type of workout? Yeah, so I think asking questions is the biggest thing for, I think, most stuff in life. If you're coaching somebody, instead of being the know-it-all, and that's where human design, I guess, I don't want to ever give somebody a reading like I'm the know-it-all. This is how you must exercise because your chart says you've got this energy, and you know that's not what it is. But it gives them a picture, and then we take into consideration how many kids you have, and then we take, do you work from home? What, you know, that whole idea too about like if they're going to join a gym, if that seems like something they want to do, is it en route to work? Is it convenient? Because, you know, asking people that, are you going to struggle with getting there? Is it, you know, can you walk there? All those questions. But I think question, because I think what you just said to me about getting curious, I love the word curiosity. You said it too, Gareth, about like getting curious about human design and giving it a shot, like being open-minded to something. So just getting curious with clients about what would serve them, and then working with that within those parameters, I guess.
No, thanks for that, Peg. It's great. And I think, you know, this is where as humans, we hate asking for help, B, talking about ourselves, you know, and then C, kind of speaking some truth. So having great conversations really does peel back those layers. And like you've said multiple times, give you permission to be vulnerable, to be yourself, and to really get down to the nitty gritty of what it is that you want or what it is that you need. So, you know, so if you are listening and you're like, okay, I want to make change, having that first conversation really is key. And then going into, you know, what are realistic goals? So just kind of summarizing what you were saying, Peg, is key. And then from there, I think you just have a clearer path of what stepping forward looks like.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to have that great conversation with you, Peg, and, you know, start some coaching, how is the best way for them to get hold of you?
Probably on Instagram. I mean, there's a link in my bio over on Instagram at Peg Cleland Coaching on Instagram, and just click on the link in my bio. There's a bit of some stuff like the Growth Zone. My Facebook community is there. The podcast is there. But you know, DM me on Instagram. I think my email might be listed there too. Any way you want to get in touch with me, would be happy to talk through if coaching fit, or if someone just wants to do a human design reading. And I sometimes will do a reading and just one session afterwards as a follow-up. I do a package like that. But then there are other people who want to like be coached. And and like I said, it's not, I'm not coaching them in fitness, but I'm coaching in the mindset of, if that's one of their goals. I coach women on confidence and business, but also some of that comes through fitness. So we can talk through things like that. But I think what we said about the curiosity, the conversation, that's being afraid to open up to people. And I like to think that I am a good listener, and I just encourage people to, whether it's with a coach or whether it's with a good friend, not to keep it all inside, because so often we have that mental loop in our head of negative thoughts. And if you don't spew it out somewhere, journal it out, talk to a friend, get it out of you, because it's really sad nowadays how much negative mindset there is, and self-esteem issues for the younger generation. It doesn't get any easier as we get older too, but talk to somebody. It's got to get out of your head. Otherwise it's not to, I don't know if this is plugging my podcast or saying a bad thing, but not get it stuck between your ears. And that's what my podcast is meant to be, is to bring you some positivity between your ears and get the negative stuff out, because there's so much of that. But yeah, sometimes it's a coach, good friend, even, your partner. To talk things out is something we don't do in society. Sometimes we feel like, oh, I can handle it, or it's who would want to listen to that,
Yeah.
And not until I fix myself up. Once I fix myself up, then I can talk to somebody about it. Once I heal myself. But that's the whole point of getting coaching or getting help, is somebody to hold your hand through it. So
yeah. And also as well, what I'll just kind of wrap that up with was, what I thought was really powerful, I saw recently, was somebody doing a great job of summarizing what coaching is. And I thought this was really powerful. And basically they were saying that the most successful people get coached in all areas of their life. And a lot of the time they're so successful is because instead of trying to figure it out and wasting their time figuring it out, they're just going to pay someone that's going to help them figure it out much quicker. Yeah. And that's kind of what coaching is, right? I'm going to help you. We help people figure out their fitness and their movement way quicker than spending millions of hours Googling it, instead of actually just doing the workout and having someone else help you along the way. So I thought that was really powerful. And what I think I just want to add to that, when Nicky was speaking about us not wanting to maybe ask those questions and then not wanting to open up and talk about ourselves, is if I could give any advice based on what you said earlier, was you need to be brave. That's step number one. You need to be brave, because it's hard and it's uncomfortable. And if you're not brave, you're not going to get the ball rolling on any of those things and create those changes. So that was my 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Peggy, for being a great guest today and talking about all of these wonderful things that you now offer. And I really, believe deeply that no matter what it is that you want to achieve, it comes from you being honest with you and having those great conversations, right? So as you mentioned, talk to a friend if it's helpful, talk to another person. But really, the change comes from you. The power is already within you, right?
Yeah,
you just have to use your mindset, I guess, your energy, whatever word choice that you prefer to use. But I just honestly believe that finding that self-honesty, that self-respect within you is what will help pioneer you forward. So I love that you're just really trying to help people with that, because that is just so empowering. So thank you for doing that. And yes, we are going to put everything in the session notes on how to get hold of Peg, the Facebook group, the Instagram, so you can absolutely connect in with her. Gareth, is there anything you want to say before we sign off our session with Peg today?
No, not really. Massively grateful for having you on the show, and another great episode. But yeah, that's all I have to share.
Yeah, it's cool. And let's connect. Let's delve more into this human design.
Thank you for having me. This is my first podcast interview, so very fun.
Yay!
I'm not a virgin anymore. Thank you for that.
As we said again and again, right? It's just good to chat. So thank you for your time today. Peg, is there anything that you want to say before we sign off, wrapping up your very first podcast session with as a guest?
No, just I guess all the stuff we've talked about, and you kind of wrapped it up there a little bit, but just trusting yourself. Like so often we look outside of ourselves for all the answers and all the help with the decisions and all the stuff. But if you can just really learn to love yourself, trust yourself, that's where it all starts. I always say to people, you are the source. You're the source of your universe, and so you're the first one you need to love before you love anybody else. Or yeah, do things for you first. So yeah, that's it.
Amazing words. Well, thanks again. Until next
Thank
time,
you,
everybody.
Val.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, all the session notes will be there for you so you can find out more information. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. 5 stars would be fantastic. And feel free to share the podcast with your friends and people that you care about. Until next time, thanks for tuning in today.